Hello. I don't really have a script for this. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the books I've been reading this month because, frankly, some of those books are uh, I don't know how to say it. Some of those books are kind of rattling around in my brain a bit. So I'm also starting this new series of videos which will just focus on talking, and you'll hear my voice as opposed to seeing my face because I have a face that will sink 1,000 ships as opposed to launching them. Uh, so yeah. Starting off, we have Susanna Clarke's Piranesi, which I finished just I think 3 days back, and I don't know. I think calling the book Nightmare Fuel is an understatement because it basically deals with a man who's stuck in an alternate dimension, uh, and he's stuck in a mansion, and he keeps talking about, you know, visiting the skeletons of dead people. He communes with the birds in the mansion. He slowly starts to piece together his life, and we realize that all is not well, everything is not what it seems, and he keeps referring to this other person he meets as the other. And the other has interesting questions to ask him about the nature of the house and everything. As the story progresses, the other starts to warn him about the existence of an entity known as 16. And the number 16 is because, including the other, Piranesi has um, um, counted that there are 15 people, two of whom are alive, inside this mansion. The language of this book flows freely. The language of this book takes a lot of different aspects of the world, aspects that you would not notice normally, and gives them an unsettling amount of detail. The danger of a flood, the certain parts of the mansion that are always under water because water doesn't recede at that part of the mansion. The use of the word halls to refer to rooms as opposed to, well, the word rooms, where the other calls them rooms and Piranesi calls them halls. And Piranesi's wacky journal entries, which have these interesting titles like "The Year the Albatross Came to the Halls," which just completely jar you and pull you in. So Piranesi was Piranesi was nightmare fuel. You're gonna have to read it to find out. And the weirdest part of it is when you get to the end of it and you realize what's going on and what has really been happening to Piranesi, you will cry. I cried. Big ugly man tears. I did it, and I'm proud of it. Which brings me to the second book I completed, which is Gideon the Ninth. Um, Gideon the Ninth. Picture the edgiest edgelord you've ever seen. Dial it up to 15,000 and you still don't get Gideon. She's a fast talking, foul mouthed, uninhibited user of the F word, and she's trying a bit too hard. In fact, she's annoying. But all of that changes in the middle of the third act. And that changes because of the sheer carnage that takes place in the book. So, Gideon is part of something called the Ninth House, who are a family of necromancers. And Gideon has basically been recruited as the cavalier of the Ninth House because the senior necromancer there, whose name is Harrowhawk, has been asked to take part in the lictor trials and become a lictor. Okay. Uh, Gideon is, of course, not happy about this principally because Gideon, as cavalier, cannot use her long sword, or was it a great sword? It was a big sword. It was a big freaking sword. Instead, she has to use a tiny sword called a rapier. And she's also not happy about the fact that she has to do like makeup which is essentially corpse paint and stuff like that, to hide her face, and Harrow insists on this. The third thing she's not happy about is the fact that she absolutely fucking hates Harrow. Right. So there is a constant give and take between Harrow and Gideon throughout. In fact, right at the beginning of the book, Gideon sort of fights Harrow, and Harrow, like humiliates her by pinning her in place with multiple skeletons. And since this is necromancy, that was pretty cool. What appealed to me about this book is the world. I was not expecting to read a fantasy setting trope like a necromantic family and also have spaceships and different worlds. And I mean, if Mass Effect, the video game, somehow managed to downgrade itself and give you things like necromancers, then perhaps you would get some idea of what Gideon's world is like. And then, of course, as I was saying, in the third act, people start dropping like flies. Suddenly they're alive, next second they're dead, and even the necromancers can't do anything about it. So we start seeing different characters who start investigating these deaths. Some of those characters in turn drop like flies. And then at the end of it, at the absolute end of it, there is a glorious, absolutely glorious battle with the big bad, in which all your frustration at this book may or may not find a little bit of peace, because that fight and the way it's written made it worth it. Like, if every Dark Souls boss that gave you trauma lined up in front of you and you were given one of the most powerful weapons ever to just, one shot them, it would not be as satisfying as the conclusion of Gideon the Ninth. And of course, because I've been on a Terry Pratchett high, I completed 2 Terry Pratchett books in July. One of them is, of course, Wyrd Sisters, which is Terry Pratchett's Macbeth. And Wyrd Sisters was a find and a half. I hunted for it across Amazon, secondhand stores. And finally, thanks to a price drop, I managed to get it for like sub 600 rupees. And my elder brother and dear friend Shopnil Banerjee actually sponsored that 600 rupees. So it's a gift from him. And Wyrd Sisters is incredible. Wyrd Sisters is Nanny, Og, Granny Weatherwax, and Margot going toe to toe against a corrupt king who has killed the rightful king, Verens. And I mean, Pratchett is somebody who leaves me tongue-tied. I don't know what to say about Pratchett that will do him justice. I probably will never be able to do Pratchett justice no matter if I fill up an entire encyclopedia about him. Language-wise, world-building-wise, there's a scene in Wyrd Sisters where all the animals of the forest just show up and stand in front of Granny Weatherwax's house, and they're just standing there, and Granny's just looking at them and saying, "He's the king. There's nothing I can do." And they just look at her, and like the power of that scene, the entire forest standing in front of Granny Weatherwax, and just hit me hard. Essentially, the equivalent to the rightful king, Fleance in Macbeth, the way his character was woven into the story and the way it was a contrast to Fleance did not escape me. It was done masterfully, where he has lived a life among an acting troupe, and he has been brought up to live with playwrights and their words, and how he turns those words into something magical, be it a woman's part, be it a man's part. This boy, Tom John, somehow just breathes new life into the words. And I could tell that this was something that really pulled me into the book. I don't know why I said I could tell, by the way, but this really pulled me into the book and made me like regret every single second I spent away from reading the book. And I'm pretty sure it took me like 3 days or so to just gulp it down once it had arrived. It is now on loan with my English teacher, who happens to be teaching Macbeth to a student, and I hope that she has fun with it. And that brings me to the second Pratchett that I finished in July, which would be A Hat Full of Sky, also a Granny Weatherwax story, but primarily the second book in the Tiffany Aching continuum. And I I don't even know what to say apart from God damn it, Terry, because this one is the one in which he looks at mental health. This one is the one where he reminds us that even though there's something else in your mind that's clouding it over and you don't feel like yourself, you are still in there. Your personality is still inside your mind and you can still come out. The participation of the Nakmuk Fiegel in wanting to help Tiffany, um, the character of Oswald, all of these things make this book an incredible read. And frankly, when Tiffany actually goes and takes part in the witch trials in an indirect fashion, it made me just gape at the book. Gape at the book because I was staring at the cover thinking, what did I just read? And I think the last time a book did that to me, and you will hear this a lot, by the way, me gaping at the cover of a book. In recent times, the last time that that has happened to me, where I have gaped at the cover of a book, would be Eisner's A Contract with God trilogy. Yeah. I read that at my dear friend Anirban Banerjee's place, and after I finished the first part of it, I was looking at the cover thinking, what did I just read? And funnily enough, yeah, then along comes A Hat Full of Sky. So yeah, that's a summary of, wow, I did 4 books in July. Okay, nice. And yeah, while we're on that topic, let me just tell you the books that I'm currently dipping my beak into. I have picked up a Terry Pratchett called Jingo, which is part of the City Watch series. I have helped my friend Pragesh to get hold of The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie. So I have decided that it's about time I also picked up the first law. So that's there. I am going to take my time and appreciate Super Gods by Grant Morrison. I've read the first 2 chapters. I'm in midway through the second chapter. And I am reading Dan Simmons in spades. I am reading The Terror by Dan Simmons, which I just started. And I am reading Hyperion, part of the Hyperion Omnibus, which also contains the Fall of Hyperion. I have reached about 60% into Kassad's Tale in Hyperion. Links to my Fable and my Bookstagram will be in the description of this video. This is a new form of video I brought out, and I hope to make more such videos as I proceed. Like at the end of the month, I want to just make a video like this. So see you there and keep reading. And this is me signing off.